So today's class that we're going to be going over is going to be appraisals, market analysis, CMAs, RPRs, actually the foundation of us, the realtors. This is our foundation. If we don't know how to analyze or come up with a market analysis or come up with the value of a home, we're in trouble. Whether we're representing a seller or representing a buyer, we're representing an investor, or if we're an investor ourselves. This is the backbone of real estate. So welcome here. Glad to have you guys. Thank you for watching, the ones that are watching right now online. So let's go over this here. And we're going to be determining, as you can see here, value on a home, okay? CMAs, which is the same thing, it's called CMA's current market analysis. Online house evaluations and house estimating. Now, the RPR is a phenomenal system that we've got. Our association's coming up with even a better RPR. It's going to be coming up in a couple of months or so. Once it does come up, we'll do another class on this. We can also do CMAs by just a click of a button, or an RPR by a click of a button. Truly, I don't like and don't recommend it. You know, what I love doing it as an investor, I've been an investor for 32 years. When I first started, I represent a lot of investors. And especially when we're dealing with money, we can't make a mistake. We just cannot make a mistake on $10, $15, $20, or $30,000 mistake. I think that your client is not going to be too happy at that. You won't be too happy. Imagine if it's you're the investor on this case here. And imagine if you underestimate it or overestimate it when you put a listing up. So again, today's class is extremely important because it's going to help us determine, okay, the value on a home, whether represent a buyer or represent a seller, either or. So 4 most important factors here, and we're going to go over them. Location, of course. They always talk about locations. Area, community, and amenities. Okay, that is extremely important. The area is extremely important because you can have a house that, for example, let's just use a house of 3,800 square feet. In one area, it's worth X amount of dollars, but that same 3,800 square foot home in another area is worth 5 times more, 10 times more. So the area is extremely important. So it's not the square footage or the cost of what it costs to build it, it's the location. Now, we have locations that are kind of like confusing, very confusing. I'll give you one, for example. Us here in Palm Beach County, we've got Loxahatchee. Loxahatchee is a very confusing area. Why? Because you've got a home that's 1,200 square feet right next to you, and it's a frame home, and then right next to it on the next lot over, or the next acre over, you've got a 5,000 square foot home. So these homes aren't uniformed. They're not uniform. So we have to go out of our area. Right there, we can stay in Loxahatchee, but we can't go over a mile. A mile is the proper distance that appraisers use, banks use, whether it's an FHA loan, conventional loan, or a VA loan, within 1 mile radius. Okay, so that's a good area that that is a prime example of picking out homes that are equivalent to our subject property, because you can't get the house next door. But now, when you go into, for example, a community, in a community it's different. You have to stick inside that community. And if that particular community doesn't have a lot of sales, then we can go across the street or or next door or behind to the community that's next to us, that we'll find comps there. Okay, but for example, going back to Loxahatchee, you can't do that. Loxahatchee, you have to find comps within one area, within 1 mile. So 1 mile is the surrounding, parameters that they use for appraisals. And in communities, you have to stick to inside that community. And we can only go back 6 months as well, too. We cannot go back like a year back or anything like that. So appraisers, what do they use? They use the last 6 months of sales, as comparables. So location is extremely important, because location as well, you have to determine what facilities are around there. Like for shopping centers, if they have, medical centers, if they have, all your shopping centers and your grocery stores and so forth, pharmacies and so forth. Again, that's extremely important, because I've been to some properties that are 30 minutes out of almost civilization. So again, that, that determines, that's a big factor on the property itself, you know. So communities, whether they're gated or not gated, man-gated or unman-gated, you know. So that has a lot to do with it as well too, of determining a value on a home. Then the amenities inside that community. Do they have a golf course? Do they have, you know, a lot of them have, you know, restaurants, they've got spas, they've got nail salons. I mean, it's amazing everything they've got in there. They've got tennis courts, pools, very beautiful areas. So again, all of that's got a lot to do with determining a value of a home, you know. So it's just not the square footage or the size, it has to do with where the location is at, the area, the amenities, and so forth, everything that it's got. When doing a CMA, one of the most important factors, or I guess all of these are important factors, is days on the market. So when you're looking at comparables, properties that are, for example, you know, pending or contingent, and we're going to go over all of this in a second, pending, contingent, and sold, you need to look at days on the market. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that a property was just 3 days on the market or 2 days on the market, okay? Would you say that that listing was properly priced? Okay, was it overpriced or underpriced, or was it just properly priced? Within 3 days, I would have to almost say that I think it's underpriced. I think it's underpriced. Okay, because nowadays we have a very very active market. So you can put a property in there, and for example, within 1 day we're gonna have I don't know, 10, 15, you know, 10, 15 offers on it. But you guys really, especially in today's market, you really need to look at what we're going to go over, determining the value of a home, because you don't want to shortchange your client either. And what happens if you're selling your own property? You don't want to shortchange yourself either. So you truly, truly, truly want to look at this. And I like doing it the old traditional way. A lot of realtors, as myself, will do it the manual way. And we're going to go over the manual way in a couple of minutes. Instead of just clicking on the CMA button or the RPR button, okay? I love doing it manually because that way I'm really going to determine the value of that home. I'm going to know exactly what it could be sold for, and could it be sold for a little bit more? Could it be sold for a little bit more? So we're in South Florida, guys. Everybody and their brother wants to live here. I mean, from all over the United States, from all over Florida, Canada, UK, Central South America. So property values here are increasing. They're going to continue increasing because of our great South Florida weather and everything it has to offer. So we need to keep that one in mind. Square footage. When you guys are doing a CMA, you guys need to look at the square footage. We're going to use for today's example a 2,300 square foot home. You truly can't look at a 3,000 square foot home because they're two different subjects, okay? So you can go either 300 or 400 feet more or 300 or 400 feet less. So if our subject property is 2,300 square feet, we can go up to, I would say, 27, no more than 28. Now, if there are no other, you know, comparables, then we do have to use the 3,000 or 3,200 square foot. But then again, we need to look at the community across the street. We need to look at the community. We need to go there and find comparables there. Okay. So all of that's got a lot of factors that we as realtors must know before determining a value on a home. So let's go back to, you know, 2,300 square foot subject property, and the other ones might be 300 or 400 square feet more, or 300 or 400 square feet less. So those are the ones we're going to use, and we're going to adjust to it. I'll give you guys an example. For bedrooms, appraisers usually use between $5,000 to $8,000, you know, for bedroom, adjusting it up or down. For pools, you know, they'll go anywhere from, again, $8,000 to $15,000 up or down. Now, you guys know it's impossible to build a pool, right, for $15,000. It really isn't. I mean, it's not impossible, but, you know, the way that we determine the value on this, it's not the accurate price on it, okay? So I recommend that, you know, you guys use those numbers because those are the numbers the appraisers are going to use. Bedroom count, anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. A pool, anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. If you want to do an average of $12,000, I think that would be fair. Something extremely important when you guys are doing your CMAs, and this is something that when you press the CMA button for your market analysis, it doesn't do, but we do it. I, as an investor, I do it this way. Why? Because I want to take a look at the photos of the comparables, and I want to see, were they upgraded? Was this home upgraded? Was this home not upgraded? So let's use an example. Home built in 1978 with no upgrades. Okay, I don't think I could ask a little bit more for the property. Now, again, we're going to go back to what we just talked about a little earlier, location. Location is everything. So if we have a 1978 home built in 1978 and it's in a prime location, I don't care if you have the original cabinets in there, you have the original carpet in there, guess what? The value is going to be increased. It's going to be a great value. But on a regular neighborhood, $300,000-$400,000 homes or $250,000 homes, again, upgrades have much to do with it, have a lot to do with it. And how are you going to do this? You're going to look at, the photos, and you're going to see the bathrooms. You're going to see the kitchen. You're going to see the flooring. You'll see the notes, if it's got a new AC, if it's got a new roof. So all of that has a lot of bearings, okay? So upgrades and features as well, too. Does the community, what features, what amenities does it have? You guys need to look at the pools. Does it have a pool? Does it not have a pool? Bedroom count, bathroom count, okay? Land size, very important. If you're on a double lot or you're on a single lot, that's extremely, extremely important. So all of those are determining factors that you have to use when you're going to determine a value on a property, whether you're buying or you represent a buyer or you represent a seller. Here is the way that I recommend to do a CMA, okay? I love doing it manually. Why do I do it manually? Because as an investor, and sometimes I have partners in some of my investments. I might have 2 partners, and I might have just 1 partner. I'd hate to tell my partner, yes, we're going to walk away with a net profit after cost repairs and the closing expenses. We're going to walk away with $50,000 or $75,000 in profit. Can you imagine if I go back to my partner, how he's going to look at me or she's going to look at me if I tell him, oh, I'm sorry, I did a bad estimate there on my CMA, and we're only making $20,000. So that's $10,000 for you, $10,000 for me. As an investor, you're not going to be too happy with me. You're going to go, oh my God, this guy Ismael, he really doesn't know much of what he's doing. So see, I can't make those mistakes. If I tell you that we're walking away with $75,000 each, we need to be close to that number, or $50,000 each. If I tell a seller at closing that he or she or they are going to get, for example, X amount of dollars, I want to be close to that. If I'm putting a listing up, I want the appraisal to come in. I want the appraisal to come in pretty accurate to my CMA. So how do I do this as an investor, as a realtor? Let me show you guys. So I'm going to take my subject property, and then I'm going to look at all the homes around it. Again, whether it's in the community or whether it's in the area. And I'm going to look at my subject property, and then I'm going to look at all, for example, all the actives that are around. Again, remember, we're going to look at square footage. We're going to look at days on the market. We're going to look at, the upgrades. We're going to look at all that, bedroom count, bathroom count, pool, all of that. So we got to take all that under consideration. But then once you've got that, you're just going to, it's so easy to do. You go to edit search right up on top when you're in your search, edit search, and then you're going to change from active and you're going to look at your contingent right here, contingent and pending. First, you're going to look at the contingent. And contingent, what does that mean? It's under contract. It's contingent upon maybe an inspection or something like that. But what are you going to look at? Days on the market. If it went under, if it was like 115 days, maybe you'll say, maybe it wasn't priced correctly. But if it was only 3-4 days, you'll probably, well, it was really priced correctly. So that's going to help you determine, plus the photos, plus the square footage, and all the amenities and features that the home offers. Then you're going to do edit search again. You're going to go back and look at pending. Now, what's the difference between pending and contingent? They're both under contract. They're both under contract, okay? They're both pending something or contingent upon something. But in other words, for just this class sake right now, they're both totally under contract. So we need to look at all those, and we need to look at the photos, and we need to look at everything that I just mentioned before. So that's going to help us determine, again, the value on a property. So once we look at the actives, contingent and pending, then we're going to go back, edit search, and we're going to look at the ones that are in backup. Now, what's a property in backup? A property in backup means it's also under contract. They're taking backup offers. Again, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at everything I just went over, from photos to features to everything, upgrades and so forth. But then I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to do edit search again, and I'm going to look at closed sales here. See closed sales? But for the ones that use Matrix, it automatically defaults in the last 6 months. But the ones that use Flex, the realtors that are using Flex, it'll give you the option either 365 days or 180 days. I recommend you go on the days on the market of 365, remove that and put 180 days. Because we need to look at what? The last 6 months. You really can't look at a property that was sold a year ago. That was a totally different market, a completely, totally different market. You need to look at the ones in the last 6 months. Me personally, at many occasions when I'm getting a listing, or if I'm looking at purchasing a property as an investment, I love going to visit the properties that are active and seeing them, seeing the neighborhood and so forth. Or if I'm selling a really high-end home as well too, before I take my client out, I will go do a preview of the neighborhood, of the amenities, of the community, and so forth. So when I take my client there, I'm very knowledgeable, and when I speak to him or her or them, you know, I'm telling them exactly what properties closed, what the conditions of those properties were, how many days on the market, and the properties that they're looking at. So it just makes you very knowledgeable. Knowledge is everything. That knowledge means that we are helping who? We're helping our clients. Without knowledge, we can't help our clients. I mean, we will, but you're not giving them the proper, you know, you're not giving them the proper attendance that they require. They require a little bit more. They require good answers to their questions and so forth. So I love going and visiting these properties and these communities. Now, that's the hard way of doing it. If you feel that that's hard, to me it's not, because I love real estate. I've been doing it for a lifetime. Well, not a lifetime, an adult lifetime. Right? But, you know, I love my job. I love what we do, you know. So to me, it's not hard at all. I'm learning. And the more I learn, you know, and I basically, you know, we're licensed for the entire state of Florida. So basically, we sell anywhere. And investments, I look at investments as an investor anywhere in the entire state of Florida. One of the good things about me is because I'm always constantly looking and doing it manually like this and going to the properties, that most of the times when one of the realtors, one of you guys come to me and ask me for like my opinion on a value of a home, I don't even need to open up the computer. I can give you a valuable home without even looking at it, whether it's in Dade County, Broward County, whether it's here in Palm Beach County, Stewart, Martin, Indian River, whether it's up in Lehigh Acres, whether it's at Henry County, it doesn't matter where it's at. Ocala, you know, it doesn't matter. Why? Because I'm constantly doing this. This is knowledge. Knowledge of your market in your farming area. Very important. And value. Value is everything on this here. So understanding the guidelines of an appraisal process, okay? The comps, again, need to remain within that community or that area. You really can't go more than a mile out, unless it's like, you know, a farm or something like that, something that's on 10 acres or 20 acres. That's completely different. Now there, we can go up to 5 miles and even up to 25 miles to find it. Why? Because these are properties that don't sell that often, and we're allowed to go way over the 1 mile radius or the 5 miles and so forth. So we can go up to 25 miles to go find another farm that sells. Like I went and seen some properties out in Okeechobee City just a couple of weeks ago. Phenomenal purchase, 40 acres on, I think they're still active, 40 acres with the home, you know, $365,000. I think that's phenomenal price, but it's way out there. It's, you know, it's way out there from everything. But I think it's a great value, if you ask my opinion, you know. So that's a property to find, to kind of comparable on that. You're gonna have to go way over a mile and sometimes 5 miles or more, 10 miles to find a comp on that. Again, square footage is very important, as you can see here. In this case here, I put from 200 to 500 square feet. I mean, you can, because depending on the size of the home, if it's a 5,000 square foot home or 6,000 or 8,000 square foot home, then we're not going to use from 200 to 500 square feet over or less. Okay, we're going to use, you know, 2,000 or 3,000. But again, that's a different market. That is a completely different market on a community like that, because these homes are being sold in the millions, you know. So it's, again, it has nothing to do with the home we're using today. 3 to 4 or 500,000 square, you know, price value from 3 to 500,000. But when you get into the millions, it doesn't really even, you know, it just depends on where the community is at. That's the important part there. Okay. So we need to, as we talked about, you can go across the street to find comparables if you don't have it. And then there are communities that are very dormant. These dormant communities, and I can tell you a couple of them here in Palm Beach County, for example, they don't sell. You don't have sales in there. You don't even have comparables in there. Why? Because the grandparents leave the property to their children, their sons and daughters, and then their sons and daughters leave it to the grandchildren. And it stays within that family for generations and generations to come. So if a home ever goes to be sold in there, and you go into that neighborhood, which there aren't a lot of sales, you're going to go, oh yes, the home's really not worth a lot. Yes, it is worth a lot. It's just that property, you know, it stays within generations of families. That doesn't mean the property's not worth it. The property's well worth that and more, you know. But there are some sleepy, you know, communities, like I call them sleepy, you know, because it stays within the families. But that doesn't mean that the property is not worth a heck of a lot more. So if you don't find comparables there, what do you have to do? You've got to go to the other communities next to it that are within a mile. A mile is a long distance, okay? And we'll find comparables there. So we can use comparables from there. So as mentioned, you know, in the last 6 months, FHA and conventional requirements. People have a big misconception and confusion on FHA appraisals compared to conventional. They think that conventional appraisals are much lenient than FHAs. They're not. It's the same requirements. And I'll tell you what the difference is. I'll tell you guys what the difference is between an FHA and a conventional one. One of the guidelines on FHAs, they want the homeowner to at least own the house, okay, to have title to this home for at least 90 days. So before you guys, as you know, if you're representing a buyer, you want to look at whatever the appraiser's office is. It could be Dade County, it could be Broward, it could be Palm Beach County, St. Lucie. So here in Palm Beach County, we've got PAPAs, Palm Beach County Property Appraisers. So you want to go in there, and you want to see how long has that person had ownership of this title. Okay, so truly FHA wants you to go under contract after the 90th day. So it'll be on the 91st day. That's when they want you to go under contract. But here's the thing. A lot of lenders will do a loan, FHA, while the property, say the investor has only owned it for 6 months or 54 days or something like that. But what they'll do is they're going to require 2 appraisals. They're going to require 2 appraisals. So you want to be able to talk to your client and let them know that it's a great chance that they're going to require 2 appraisals. Okay? Why? Because the homeowner has not owned that property for the 90-day requirement. It's because FHA really wants you to put it on the contract at the 91st day or thereafter. Okay? Also, one of the differences between FHA appraisals and conventional, once you do an appraisal, an FHA, what happens is they're going to assign an FHA number to it. And that appraised value, once you do the appraisal, is going to stick to that property for the next 6 months, where conventionals, they don't. You see what I mean? Conventionals, They do not. But if you do an appraisal and if it doesn't close, that appraisal is going to stick to that property for the next 6 months. Now, we could also do a second appraisal or even a third appraisal, you know. But what big difference is there between an FHA and conventional? FHA is very lenient because the FHA these are federally insured loans. So that means that your audience of buyers is a lot larger than conventional. Conventional, you know, the buyers they're a little bit more, you know, stricter on the guidelines, on the scores, on the job, the FICO scores, just everything. So that means you have less buyers for that property. Where FHA opens up the window to a heck of a lot more buyers, But again, the difference truly is the ownership of the property, okay, and the 6 months, that the FHA appraisal is going to stick to that property. Where conventional, it's not. Conventional is that they don't have a requirement of a 6-month appraisal that's going to stick to it. But the only problem that I see with that is with conventional loans is that my audience of buyers is a lot smaller, okay, to where if an FHA loan, then you've got a huge audience. You've got a lot of more buyers. Is one of the big differences. But the requirements inside, can you do a conventional loan with a big hole in the ceiling? No, you can't. You can't do an FHA either. They're going to require the kitchen cabinets to be there. They're going to require a water heater. They're going to require all the pipes to be there, the windows not to be broken, nothing boarded up. So they're going to require all that. You know, it's the same guidelines. The only thing that changes, again, the seasoning of title and the time of appraisal that's gonna be pretty much stuck to that property for the next 6 months. Okay, but truly FHAs are phenomenal because it gives a lot more flexibility to the buyers, not the property. It's the same thing, conventional or FHA. Here, as I mentioned again, on conventional loans, there are no seasoning of title. There is no seasoning of title. So that's phenomenal. But again, it restricts how many buyers can actually purchase this home. Again, there is no 6-month requirements period either. So conventional loans are just a little bit harder to qualify for. So that truly represents less buyers, less sales. The property is not that marketable. But when you have an FHA loan, property is truly marketable almost to everybody, And always keep in mind that you can do an FHA loan, you know, even if they own it for less than 90 days. Remember, it's just going to require 2 appraisals. With most lenders, it's going to require 2 appraisals. Appraisal Substitute. This is something that is huge nowadays, okay? And many individuals or sellers, they're asking for a little bit more than what the property is going to appraise at. And what they're saying is that the buyer must bring in the difference. If the property appraises for less than what the purchase price or the contracted price is, then the buyer has to have the difference. The buyer's got to know. Let's just use an example here. Let's say we have a home that went into contract at $380, but it appraised at $360. So the buyer needs to bring in the difference between $360 to $380, which is $20,000. But that buyer also has to have the down payment money for $360. Also has to have the closing costs in the appraisal, in the insurance, and all that. So they have to have not just the requirements for qualifying for this loan, but they must have the additional $20,000, which is the difference between the sales price and the appraised value. So how important is that? If you represent a buyer or a seller, it's extremely important. As a listing agent, I would want to be very clear with the buyer's agent to speak to their buyer, you know, and if there's an appraisal, you know, waiver like this here, a substitute, you know, they need to be clear that they must have the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price or the contractor price. And plus they also need, again, for their proper down payment, closing costs, and so forth. So you need to be clear on that on a listing, as a listing agent. What if you're the buyer's agent? You need to be clear as daylight on that. Now, in the as-is contract, if we don't have a waiver like this here, okay, an appraised waiver or a substitute, then the property is going to fall under the as-is contract guidelines. The property has to appraise. But again, you guys as buyer's agents and as listing agents, you want to do what I just went over with you guys. You want to go over all this and just not press the button. Because I'm going to tell you guys something. I have seen so many times, like REOs or foreclosed homes, HUD homes, okay? And some others where realtors haven't gone out, where realtors haven't really gone out and did an inspection or a walkthrough of the property, and the property's got probably 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, and they listed it because they saw it in Palm Beach County property appraisers under 2 bedrooms, maybe 2 bath. They left the bedroom count out. So that's why I don't like doing CMA, because the CMA or the RPR is nothing more than a database. And all it's doing is just drawing in information from current sales. Okay, so I love doing it manually. Why? Because I hate, inconveniencing my clients or my investors. I want this to go smoothly. I want it to be a smooth transaction from the beginning all the way to the end for my clients. I want it to be a very pleasant experience, not an uncomfortable experience where you're going to have to come to your client and say, oh, sir, ma'am, by the way, you need an additional $8,000, $12,000, $22,000 more. See, I don't want that very uncomfortable experience. So I want to make sure, like I mentioned to you guys earlier in this class, this is CMAs, is market analysis of a home is really the backbone of being a realtor, of either selling, representing a seller, representing a buyer, representing an investor. It's the backbone. So appraisal substitutes, please be clear, okay, to your clients of what it stands for and what it means. Now I want to show you guys, and if we could put this on the screen here, where to find this. Mm-hmm.
So for buyer, so if the bank appraisal value is less than the asking price,
yeah,
and we submit the as-is contract, right? No appraisal
waiver. Correct.
So and seller signed the contract.
Yes.
And after the bank appraisal is the value come is less.
Exactly.
And that time maybe the seller said no, I need the.
They have the right to.
Yes.
Yes.
I need the asking money.
Right.
But already seller accept the contract, so that time buyer can fight.
Well, here's what's going to happen, and that's a really good question. And thank you for asking that question, by the way. Okay. I mean, the question is, what happens if we don't have a commission waiver inside? Okay, it's just a regular as-is contract. Is the seller obligated to sell that property under the purchase or the contracted price, even though it came in for $30,000 less? The answer to that is no. The seller doesn't have to sell, and the buyer doesn't have to buy. The property did not appraise. Now it could get renegotiated. You as the buyer's agent, or as the listing agent, you guys can sit down and come together and try to renegotiate it. We've had many occasions, we have what's called commission waivers, where both realtors, or for example, the Realtors of Partnership Realty, has decided to try to contribute some of their commission, towards the, because it didn't appraise, and you could do that. You can actually do this, but you have to do what's called the commission waiver. You'll give them $3,000, $4,000 back or something like that, because you're trying to put this deal together, help out the buyer and seller in this case. But if nobody wants to cooperate, nobody wants to reduce their price or increase their monies or their net proceeds to closing, and none of the realtors want to contribute any of their funds or any other commissions, then guess what? Then we do a release and cancellation, because the seller does not have to sell, the buyer does not have to buy. But a lot of realtors will try to bring all the parties, since we've got a deal right there, let's just try to bring it together. And sometimes it's not as exaggerated as what I used, anywhere from $30,000 to $30,000. I mean, I have seen $75,000, $100,000 or more, where the appraised value came in a lot less, $150,000 less. Okay, but in many cases it's $6,000, $8,000 only. So I think we can put those together, or 10,000 or 12,000. I think that we can put those together. So you guys call me.
Seller not has to be sold.
Doesn't have to sell. Not because the seller wants what he's asking for, but the buyer doesn't have the additional funds either. So that's a deal that's going to fall apart. Not fall apart, but it'll have to, you have to do a release and cancellation on that. But again, if it's a very small amount, $10,000, $15,000, we could probably put it together. We really could. It's just a matter of coming together and talking with the seller, talking with the buyer, talking with the listing agent, talking with the buyer's agent, talking with all the parties involved, and help out, and help out the all parties, whether the buyer and seller, because the buyer truly loved that property. They felt the property was worth it. If not, they would not have signed their name to that contract on that particular sales price. And then the seller feels that that property was worth exactly what they were asking for it. Sometimes there's a lot of emotional values, in homes. People are really attached. They don't want to sell it. And there's a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of factors to when you go to sell a house. So, if it's a small amount, we've had them even larger amounts. We had one not too long ago, $150,000. It came together and it closed. But all parties decided to work together on that. So I want to show you guys where this appraisal substitute is at, in case you have a seller that really has emotional ties to this property and they want a little bit more than what it's going to appraise at. So I want to put the screen up here. When you open up your forms, actually your dashboard here on your MLS, if you scroll down, you're going to find right here is a shortcut to Form Simplicity. Now, this is for Partnership Realty's library only. So we have all the forms that you guys need for any type of sell, any sell, whether you represent a buyer, a seller, a listing, a tenant, commercial property, it doesn't matter what it is. We're going to show you guys how to find our form packages. So you can either open up either your Flex or you can open up your Matrix, but truly there's a shortcut down here, whether you have Matrix or Flex. Just come right here to where it says, Form Simplicity, and click on that button right there. Now, it's going to bring you to this window. So you're going to have the home page, transaction, and blank forms. So you're going to come here and click on blank forms. Then it's going to open up this window. And you're going to come here where it says form packages, right? So you're going to click on form packages. That's going to open up Partnership Realty's library of everything that you need, okay, from to conduct yourself as a realtor here in the state of Florida. Every form that you need is going to be in there. You guys need to go over them as well too. So when you click on this one here, on form packages, it'll open up this window. Now it's going to default into 10 packages. I need you guys to come over and click on 50 packages, because that's going to give you all of Partnership Realty's packages, correct? So I need you to click on 50, and when you click on 50, it's going to give you this here. Now you guys, once you open up all the packages, you truly need to go over one by one, so you'll know it's there. Anytime you have internet access, you can open up this. So for example, if you guys need the broker's license or the company license, you don't have to call me for it. You just go in there, find it, and send it to whoever's requesting it. If you need a W-9, it's in there. Anything that you need, everything's going to be in there. But for today's class, we are representing a seller, so we're looking for a listing package. So it's going to be right here. You're going to scroll all the way down. You'll find the listing package. And once you click on the listing package, it's going to open up this window, and you're going to scroll all the way down. And it's the second to last, and that is the Appraisal Substitute. There's the form that you're looking for. There's the form that I showed you guys. Just in case the seller said, I want $10,000, $20,000 more because of emotional ties or whatever the case may be, or the upgrades. So this is
going to happen after the appraisal, right?
No, this has to happen at the time of signing a contract.
At the beginning.
Oh yeah, of negotiating a contract. You're going to be very clear with the buyer's agent, if you're the listing agent, that, you know, that property could appraise, but there's a good chance that you don't feel that it's going to appraise. And your buyer needs, you're going to tell the buyer's agent, your buyer needs to be prepared. Do they have the additional funds to close? Besides their proper down payment, their closing costs, appraisal, insurance, home inspection, and all that. That's completely aside. They need to have the additional funds.
You're talking about the extra E.
Yes, exactly. From the purchase price to the appraised value.
And all that stuff is irrelevant. It's just the market value versus.
Precisely. And you know, in some cases, the property will appraise. In some cases, it will.
This market right now is very, very.
It's very hard that the properties will appraise, especially with this market. It is such an active seller's market. It is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. So we need to be prepared. And remember, when we sign an appraisal waiver or something like that, we need to tell our clients exactly, you know, what they're signing and what they're going to have to be prepared for. Because we want this to be an uncomfortable scenario for our clients, whether we represent the seller or the buyer. But you know here now where to find that document. Again, what happens if the appraisal comes in lower? Then we are going to try to negotiate this. We're going to, you know, talk to all the parties involved and see if, you know, everybody will contribute a little bit and we can put this deal together. In many cases, realtors do want to put this deal together. And like I said, in a lot of situations, the appraisal just might come in $8,000, $10,000, $6,000, $3,000. You've got a deal there. You've got a deal there. You know, I mean, you guys, what you should do if you have a scenario like that, you want to call me. There's, you know, Ismael Alvarez is my name, and there's my phone number right there. Call me. Call me, get my advice. You know, I'm available to you guys 7 days a week. If I don't answer, send me a text. I'll always call you guys back. But I will come up with a game plan, and we'll always, usually, you know, 9 out of 10 times, or I would say probably 99.9% of the times, we always work it out. We always are able to work it out, okay? Even if it's, like I said, we just had one, it was $150,000. So the realtor called me up, he was really panicking. You know, he goes, but we're pretty close. Now, $150,000 is on a very, you know, it's on a high-end home. So $150,000 is truly not much when we're looking equivalent to a home that's going for $300,000 or $400,000 or $280,000. So it's the same thing of $8,000 to $150,000. We'll find a solution. Call me. But you know, one of the things that you guys can do is say you get a second appraisal. So if the property comes in on a scenario like you mentioned before, one of the scenarios that we could do is we can order a second appraisal. So, you know, the buyer's going to pay for a second appraisal. And you guys remember what an appraisal is? It's an opinion of value. It's nothing more than an opinion of value. It's unbelievable where you've got, I'll give you an example, like 3 appraisers. And all 3 appraisers will do an appraisal on one property, and all 3 of them will come in with different values. What happens if you have a scenario like that? You can, again, like you mentioned earlier, we can order a second appraisal. Then it's going to be the lender's choice, because remember, they're the one that's lending the money. It's going to be the lender's choice of which one of the 2 appraisals they're going to use. I've seen them up to sometimes order a 3rd appraisal. Now that 3rd appraisal, the lender orders and pays that because they want to take all 3 to come up with a good value. I've seen that happen because one appraiser comes in with one value, the other appraiser comes in with another value, and the lender goes, which one is correct? You know? So they order a 3rd appraisal. Or they might order what's called a desk review. A desk review is completely exactly what we're doing, what I just showed you guys. Do you guys know how an appraisal starts out? It starts out with a desk review. What does an appraiser do? Well, they've got the same software as us, the realtors. They've got the same software. It's not like they have another software, another computer with other sales. It's not. They have the same MLS that we've got, okay? And they're going to do the same thing manually as I just showed you there. They're going to look at the comps. They're going to look at everything I just went over prior to this. And then that's how they're going to determine which comparables they're going to go outside now and take photos of. But they've already made up their mind and determined, which are the comparables that they're going to use for the subject property appraisal. I'll tell you guys something that a lot of realtors do. They're in contact with the appraiser. So when the appraiser is going to go to do the physical inspection, the actual appraiser, the realtor would already have probably emailed them some comps or brought some comps in manually to meet them at the appraiser at the date of inspection. Okay, but in many cases, what the actual realtors will do once they have communication with the appraiser, they'll email them some comps. You know, and appraisers appreciate that because you're actually helping them. You're actually assisting them. And they're going to look at your comps compared to his comps or her comps, and then they're going to put it together. And then sometimes there even might be closed sales that just closed after the fact, you know, that you spoke with the initial conversation with that appraiser. So you'll bring those comps to the actual inspection date, or you'll email them to them. But a lot of appraisers, a lot of realtors will do that. It helps to put the deal together. It's working, you know, to put this deal together. A lot of realtors will just let the you know chips fall wherever they fall. I don't recommend that. I recommend you do this homework because you want this to be a very pleasant transaction for your client from the beginning of this transaction to what? To the very end. So I don't recommend you just, you know, saying, the appraiser's going to do his job. No, you guys should do your job too. Okay, so I recommend you guys doing this. But ordering a second appraisal, you could also do that. That's a very, you know, again, the client's going to pay for it. And I think it's a fair thing to do. And even though an appraisal could be anywhere for an average of about $500, it beats having to start all over again and finding another property and so forth. I would take the chance and spend the $500 and get that second appraisal. So that helps out very much too. I want to thank you guys for this class, and you guys are here. It's sort of a short class, but it's an easy class to understand once you know the steps involved. I do want you guys to please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Remember, when you're in there, go to subscribe or go to like, hit notifications, because that's how we get in contact with you guys, and that's how we are informing you guys of all the new classes and so forth that are coming up. But I want to thank everybody that was watching and all the realtors that are here. Thank you again, and we'll see you at the next class.